Welcome to Effective Writing Instruction with Mr. K. Together, we're going to learn some effective tools for educating diverse groups of students on the magic and beauty of writing. We'll cover both general guidelines and specific strategies to be used in certain situations. We'll learn how to create a writing classroom that meets the needs of all students and creates opportunities for them to learn and grow. Today we will cover
guidelines and goals, giving students choice, students as authors, the writing process, creating a writing community, differentiation, 6+1 writing traits, creating engaging lessons, using technology effectively, student choice. As teachers, we are somewhat constrained by our curriculum and the standards that our students are expected to meet by the end of the year. But teaching is recognizing that there are many routes to the same end goal. Students enter our classroom with a wide diversity of interests. Different students will find different aspects of writing interesting and wish to engage with different topics. Students should have a range of freedom in their writing. Giving students options within the context of a lesson allows students to feel as if they have control of their own education and craft, and increases engagement.
Class, today we're going to write our own versions of fairy tales and change the ending. First, each of you needs to brainstorm a list of fairy tales that you really love. I want you to think about your favorite story that you've ever heard. Okay class, today we're going to write a new ending for Humpty Dumpty. What if he didn't fall off that wall? What would have happened?
Motivating students to see themselves as authors. Allowing choice is one element of getting students to see themselves as authors. Additionally important is modeling writing through both displaying your own process and the use of mentor texts. Students may think of writing as something that other people do, a mysterious process that they cannot understand. By showing your own writing process, including mistakes in editing, you can help to demystify the process of writing. In addition, by offering examples of well-written and interesting texts, you can help students use these mentor texts to improve their own writing. The goal is for students to consider themselves authors, as competent as any other, and to realize that writing, and good writing, can be done by anyone.
Buckner writes that the use of mentor texts can help students both in giving them vocabulary ideas and general writing skills that can be applied to their own writing. What does that look like in the classroom? As part of our unit on dialogue, we have been examining Amazing Grace by Mary Hoffman. In this work, the author uses synonyms for said such as shouted, whispered, and exclaimed, which have different connotations and can help students make their writing more interesting and more dynamic. The author also uses dialogue to advance the plot of the story, which is a key focus for our lesson. Using mentor text helps give students examples of ways to improve their writing. Teachers display their own work, fully showing the writing process and including their own mistakes. It helps get students comfortable with the steps necessary to create powerful work. Let's watch. Up on the board is the first draft of my paper. Does anyone see a correction I should make? Don't be shy. We all make mistakes, and that's why editing is so important. That's right. I forgot to capitalize the first letter in the sentence. Now let's check for that in each other's writing.
Writing is a multi-step process that students must engage in to create quality work. First, they create their own ideas and write an original draft. Then, they engage in editing, in which they can either peer edit or be graded by a teacher who will give them feedback and improvements to make. Then, they revise, recreating their work and fixing it, which creates the result of a rewrite. This rewrite is then edited for grammar and other issues. Although this is the basic process, there can be many levels of editing, and work can be edited over and over. Students have to understand that editing is not a bad thing, because you want the best possible finished product.
Students must understand that writing is not done after the first attempt. Quality writing is the result of writing, editing, rewriting, and more editing. Being able to accept changes and understanding that the goal of making the best possible finished product includes making changes are important to students taking pride in their work and being motivated to learn new writing skills. Although not every piece of writing will undergo the entire process, it's important to get students comfortable with the idea of opening up their work to criticism both from fellow students and their teachers. Teachers should try to ensure as many opportunities as possible for students to engage in peer editing as well as teacher editing. Teachers can also help encourage the process by displaying student work and making it clear that the finished product of writing is something to be proud of. An example of creating this idea is the idea of publishing day ceremonies in which students get to proudly show their work and describe it to others.
Building writing communities. As part of the writing process, teachers should foster active discussions and interaction in the classroom around writing. Students should be engaging in discussion about writing plans, talking about potential topics, as well as being engaged in the process of correcting and adding to each other's work. They should also collaborate and build ideas together, even writing in groups. In general, writing should not be considered an isolated or non-social activity. After all, the written word is just another method of communication between people. Teachers can reinforce the interactive aspects of writing through writing workshops and class discussions.
Alright class, today is the first day of our biography unit. Biographies are non-fiction texts that tell us the story of someone's life. Gather into groups and discuss famous people who have affected your life and who you're interested in learning more about. These will be the subjects for your biographies. I want each of you to think on your own about how you will write your biography. What inspires you? Who do you want to learn about?
Differentiation. Students do not enter a classroom with identical skill levels and prior exposure to writing. Differentiation is the process by which teachers meet the needs of all students by changing aspects of lessons and assessments. Differentiation can take many forms, depending on the particular needs a teacher is trying to serve. However, differentiation instruction typically falls into two main categories, process and product. When process is differentiated, teachers build tiered and varied activities with different supports and challenges for learners with different levels or forms of understanding, and give additional scaffolding as needed. When product is differentiated, teachers expect different final results from students and assess them differently, still challenging them appropriately for their skill levels to promote growth. The level and form of differentiation can vary lesson to lesson and classroom to classroom, but teachers must make an effort to vary aspects of lessons for students with different needs.
Let's talk about some specific examples of differentiation. Obviously, the style of differentiation will depend on the specific needs and abilities of each student. However, there are some general tools that teachers can use to differentiate their lessons. Some examples of differentiation of process include supports and scaffolds, such as supplying students with sentence stems for responses, giving them reminder boxes or helpful hints for parts of lessons, or allowing them to engage in group work or discussion in their planning. Example of differentiation of product include assigning students different assignments, allowing different lengths of essays for different students, or allowing students different presentation options based on their own personal talents and abilities. The important aspect to remember is that students have different needs that should be considered in planning every lesson. No two students are the exact same, and you can make lessons more useful if every student is being challenged in some way. It's also important to avoid tracking your students with your lessons. In other words, you don't want to hold students to lower expectations and not allow them to engage in that purposeful struggle that makes learning happen. The goal of differentiation is to reach students at every level and cause them all to have to work to improve.
The 6+1 writing traits are key elements of writing that students should consider in doing independent work. What are the 6+1 writing traits? Ideas, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, and conventions make up the first 6, plus presentation as the +1. Presentation is separate because while it relates to the final product, it's not a core element of writing. A helpful mnemonic device to remember the 6+1 writing traits is VIP cows. If you want to remember how to write well, think about some very important cows. Hey, knock knock. Interrupting cow. Moo! The idea is the main message of a story or piece. what the goal of the author's work is. The organization is the internal structure of the piece, how the author sets up their argument or point or story. The voice is the personal tone and flavor of the author's message. What is their style? How do they lend their own unique twist to the writing? Word choice is the vocabulary a writer chooses in their work to convey their message and meaning. Sentence fluency is the rhythm and flow of the language. Is it choppy or does it flow together smoothly? Conventions is mechanical correctness. Grammar, spelling, commas, punctuation, that sort of thing. And presentation is how the writing actually looks on the page. Is it neat or sloppy?
These traits cover a large portion of what we hope for students to gain from writing instruction. Most specific writing skills fall into one of these categories, and they provide a general structure for the core of writing instruction. Standards and goals tend to fall into these categories.
Engagement. Have a hook or some outside draw for student interests. Get students invested in lessons. The exact form that engaging lessons take will depend on your grade level and particular class. However, students tend to enjoy the inclusion of fun characters and lessons having some story or goal to guide learning. In particular, if multiple lessons can be tied together under one plot line, students will be sucked in and invested. Although learning is the priority, learning occurs more effectively when students are interested.
Every teacher's version of an engaging lesson will differ. Don't try to force it. Figure out where your comfort zone is. Some of you might be comfortable playing different characters, being puppets, and acting in front of your class. That's awesome. And some of you might not feel so comfortable with doing that immediately. Then you might want to use technology to pre-record videos and to create scenes that you couldn't even come up with in the classroom.
Hello, I'm Norbert the Knowledgeable Nerd. I'm here to explain how to effectively use technology in your classroom. For example, did you know that I am technology? Animate Anything is just one of many tools you can use to make storytelling come to life in your classroom. Technology can also help you communicate and give feedback more effectively to students, as well as allow students to share and publish their work. Technology can help guide lessons and give you a format to present information in unique ways that involve students more and allows for teacher-student interaction. Technology also allows teachers to play to students' different strengths, differentiating and allowing access to all learners. For more information on technology, check out Apps for Educators.
Specific writing strategies. SRSD. SIOP for ELLs. Strategy instruction and generalization for students with disabilities. Writing workshop. SRSD, or self-regulated strategy development, is a method of helping readers learn how they can use writing strategies independently. There are several steps to the process involving slowly scaffolding students to understanding while gradually reducing teacher supports. There are six steps to the SRSD process. First, students develop the background knowledge necessary behind a strategy. Then, students and instructors discuss strategies, speaking about students' current performance levels and abilities, as well as being introduced to the specific writing strategy being targeted. Writing strategies often use a mnemonic device to help students remember writing skills for different types of text. For example, the parts of a narrative are ICE: introduction, create a problem, events, and an end. Following the discussion, the teacher models the use of the writing and self-monitoring strategies. They show the student how it is performed. The student follows by memorizing the strategies. Then, the student and teacher practice the strategy together, supporting student learning. Finally, students are asked to perform the strategy independently. The SRSD method centers around a slow release of teacher support, allowing students to gain strategies permanently. Although it is effective, the SRSD method is very time-intensive and forces students to remember many different strategies to be an effective writer.
The Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol, or SIOP, is an instructional strategy for helping ELL students. There are many elements to the SIOP, but the core of it boils down to making lessons meaningful for ELL students by making them concrete and comprehensible. Utilize their knowledge of content areas in their L1. Give students opportunity to practice hands-on and independently construct learning strategies that most help them. Give them many small opportunities to practice their language skills. Content and language instruction support each other, with the focus being on developing necessary academic language for the classroom. There are many different disabilities that you may encounter in your writing classroom that impact students' writing skills in some way. Although each impacts students differently, there are some common factors that teachers can address to assist students with disabilities. A modified version of SRSD is useful. The goal is to teach students strategies that are generalizable, particularly in terms of self-motivation. Rather than focus on many specific strategies for one instance, the focus of strategy instruction and generalization is teaching strategies that can be used across different content areas of writing.
The writing workshop is a set presentation of the writing process to students that involves high amounts of collaboration and discussion in the classroom. It spans several weeks, beginning with idea generation and collecting ideas. Then students choose seed ideas and write drafts. These drafts are edited in groups, or by the teacher, for major changes to content and quality, and then rewritten and revised. Then, the new product is edited to fix conventions. Finally, students publish their work and writing celebrations are held. Lessons during the writing workshop also follow a consistent format. Teachers teach a mini lesson which gives specific writing techniques. Students also receive writing time and have the opportunity to share work. It is important to note that the writing workshop combines many elements of effective writing teaching, such as allowing student choice and treating students as authors. In addition, both the writing process and the 6+1 writing traits are emphasized through the steps of the writing workshop and the foci of the mini lessons.